Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Wednesday, NHL Entry Draft Day. All of our guests brought to you by Able Auctions, ableauctions.ca. And just before we get to Shane Malloy, a reminder that Thursday, tomorrow, Able will sell the contents of a closed metal fabrication shop, milling machines, lathes, welders, saws, lathe chucks, loads of tooling, all sold to the highest bidder. Top quality, very well-maintained equipment, all sold online Thursday, ableauctions.ca. For information on this metal shop milling equipment auction or dozens of other auctions, go to ableauctions.ca to get your business assets sold at auction. Email sales at ableauctions.ca, sales at ableauctions.ca. Draft day, NHL.
Love it.
Who else would we have on the show? From Hockey Prospects Radio, author of The Art of Scouting, Shane Malloy. Shane, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
Gentlemen, I'm doing great. We're just getting prepped before we get over to Bridgestone Arena, and we broadcast the first round live on SiriusXM NHL Network Radio. Me and Steve Coolies and Scott Laughlin.
Awesome.
So we're getting all fired up. This is my favorite time of the year. As much as I love the World Juniors and U18s and the Stanley Cup Finals, the draft to me is the crowning jewel for my entire year.
Give us an idea of the vibe in Nashville.
Nashville is one of the funnest cities in the world. Like, it is fantastic. All the downtown strip is in full regalia. Like, they are full on about the NHL draft. It's been really impressive. So it's actually not much different than what happened in 2003. And everybody's been out on the strip. Last night, you saw quite a few people, doing their best to get back to their hotel rooms.
No names mentioned, though, Shane. Hey, the Canucks
I will keep that secret.
Canucks have 6 picks in the first 4 rounds for the first time since 1984. Is this draft deep enough for that to mean something?
Certainly. I think what sometimes we have to consider is once you get past really the second round, that's where you start to look at European players going to college, because you want them to have a longer runway of development. So if you can get an extra 2 years, or at least one, before you have to go to the American Hockey League, because we all know how tough that league is. It's the second best league in the world. It's a bit of a meat grinder for young players. It's a big adjustment. So I always look towards those types of players going into those environments. The longer you can keep them out of the American Hockey League, the better, because that's a bit of a hard transition. I give credit to some of the Canucks prospects. I thought they all had a pretty strong year in the American League, considering how young they were.
Shane, the Canucks pick 11th overall. If a defenseman is indeed their target, they say best player overall, but I think that all things equal, they go for a defenseman. They need one. Who do you like? Simashev, Sandin Pellikka, Ryan Backer, Wielander? Who's your guy?
Well, I think it really obviously depends on who's on the board, but certainly Simashev, Reinbacher, and Wielander are the first 3 on my on my list. I actually have Simashev first, then Reinbacher, then Tom Wielander, and I have Wielander at 13. And not very often do you see a defenseman with that type of skating ability. He may arguably be the best all-round skater in this entire draft class. His ability to create time and space and take away time and space through his skating, really good defensive habits, and he's the kind of guy that coaches trust. So when things are a little bit chaotic on the ice, you can throw Wielander out there and he can just really calm things down. But he made a really fantastic play versus the Americans at the U18s, where he picked up the puck going around the net, drew defenders, and then reversed so quickly because of his skating ability that he's be able to get the puck to his winger down on an odd man rush. So to me, I think he has the transferable skills to be a top 3 D-man. I think he can be a number 3 D-man in the NHL. A very, very smart player.
Hey, Shane, tell us about the intrigue and mystery of Michkov. He's got term left on his deal in Russia. Well, so does Simashev. But everyone's got Michkov. Now possibly people talking the Ducks might take him at 2. Where do you see him going?
Well, in terms of offensive talent, he's the second most talented player in the draft class. Like, his offensive capabilities are not far away from Bedard in terms of his ability to create time and space, to be deceptive with the puck. His shot, his passing, his hockey sense, vision are all at a top level. In terms of, people talk about risk. I don't think there's any risk in terms of him being Russian or having the term on his contract, because like any contract, you can negotiate your way out of it with money.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's an issue. And I'm not going to blame the geopolitical issues on a 17 or 18-year-old kid. He has no control over that. So I don't think that's going to be an issue as well. And, he's gone through a really tough time. His father passing away. So, that's a lot of pressure, is a lot on his shoulders as a young man. And so far, from all accounts, he's handled it exceptionally well. And to me, I'm looking more towards the person. He's gone through a lot of tragedy. So I'm hoping for him that this is going to be an opportunity for him to have a little bit of joy in his life and to remember his dad. And hopefully that becomes a really highly successful career for him. And if Anaheim took him at 2, I wouldn't be surprised, and 2, I would applaud Martin Madden, their director of amateur scouting, who's also their assistant general manager, and Pat Verbeek for just not listening to the noise and doing what they think is best, because the kid's an exceptional talent.
This is going to be a great draft for kids from Vancouver, possibly 5 in the first round, Shane. Tell us about Zach Benson and Matthew Wood, 2 local kids. Where do you see them going? What do you like about them? And you see them going up or down today?
No, Zach Benson, he'll be somewhere in that top 9, 8. It really depends on preference. That's one of the interesting things. Even if you look at my list, it's all based on positional preference, playing style preference. I balance between their floor and their ceiling. So on my list, I have Benson at 9. I have Matthew Wood at 11. Benson's ability. What really impressed me with Benson is, considering how many talented players were on Winnipeg this year, he was the play driver. He was the one where the defense really truly focused on and trying to take away his game, and he was up for the challenge. So for me, that's really impressive for a younger player, when he could have just deferred to the older players who have talent as well. They were first round picks. And Matthew Wood, as his skating progresses and he gets to a point where, he's an NHL above average, how hard is it to find a power forward in the NHL? They're very, very difficult to find. So anybody with that type of body has that hockey sense, and he's more of a primary playmaker as a power forward. And those types of players tend to make a longer career and a more successful career than the primary shooter. So I have all the faith in both those players to have successful careers. And I like the fact that if Matthew could play 2 more years in college hockey, I think that would go a long way in him having a successful career as well. I just like the players that take a little bit longer time before they hit the pro ranks.
Yeah, 6'4", pushing 200, Yukon. Shane, give us a dark horse prospect likely to be picked in round 1. Somebody that people aren't talking about a whole lot.
Well, probably it'd be Michael Harabel, just because he's a goaltender. So he played in the USHL for Omaha, and I just think you look at his size, 6'6", he might be 6'7". I stand up beside him. The kid's a behemoth, but he has a lot of strong technical ability, hockey sense as a goaltender. He's not the fastest in terms of his feet, but he pushes so hard because he has so much power that I don't think that's going to be an issue. So for me, I know some people are more risk averse when it comes to goaltenders, but if you find a goaltender you think can turn into a 1A or maybe a 1B, I have no problem with taking them in the first round.
Hey, Shane, one more. I'll throw a bit of a curveball at you, because this player intrigued so many Vancouver fans late last season. What's your take, and I don't think we've had you on since he made his NHL debut, on Akita Hirose? He was really impressive at the end of last season.
Well, one of the things about him is it's just that he has really good vision, and he's very patient with the puck. And so if you can get him in a position with other players around him that can play a puck possession game and that he can use a give and go with, he has enough offensive talent, but he has to play in a certain role on a certain team, because he can't do everything. He's not what I would call a Swiss Army knife. So he has some limitations of where he can play in the lineup, but that doesn't mean if you put him in the right position, he can't have some level of success. And, so I'm kind of crossing my fingers to see if he can come up and stay, because I think there's a place for a player like him in the NHL. It's just a matter of what your roster construction is like and whether that's a fit at that time.
Shane, we got a kid here in Vancouver with the Giants, Samuel Honzik. Great talent, but he had that injury coming out of the World Juniors. Is that injury going to affect where teams take him in the first round?
No, from my understanding that the injury isn't going to be limiting to his career moving forward. So that's what they always look at. They make sure that the medical reports are cleared. So I have Honzik at 18th overall on my list.
18th, okay.
And 18th, yeah. So that I'm projecting him to be a second line center or a second line winger, depending how that plays out based on the team's preferences and how he develops. But certainly highly skilled player, lots of intelligence. He's got he'll fill out and have an NHL body. And I thought, based on his international play, he really shone brightly against his peer group. So a lot of talent there as well. And I'm looking forward to see where everybody goes, because every team has their own preferences and how they weight weight the metrics, weight the skill sets. I do the same thing. So it's one of the things when you're looking at lists out there, the difference between 5 spots, 7 spots in the first round is not relevant. And the difference between 15 to 20 spots in a second or third round, equally irrelevant, because it can really change based on what your preferences are. So if you look at my list, it's pretty clear that, I value top 3 D-men and power forwards because they tend to have a higher level of preference. Centermen as well tend to be a little bit higher on my list because of their positional need and value. So it just comes down to the individual's preference, and every NHL team has that as well.
I could listen to you all day, my friend, but I know you got work to do. This has been just fabulous. We'll get you back on soon.
Appreciate. Hey, I followed up a great J-Pat. Jeff Patterson does fantastic work. I respect his work, and I look forward to seeing him next time I get out to Vancouver.
Back-to-back great guys. And say hi to Scott for me. Scott and I go back, Grey Cups. Back in the day, we used to pound a few. To say hi to Scott.
I will. He's a character.
The alcoholic drinks, anyways. But anyway, say hi to Scott.
Yeah, we got it, Rick. Shane, thanks for this. We appreciate it.
Take care, gentlemen.
All right.